Good morning once again, Matthew. We're looking at our second of three evergreens that you can find out in the Norfolk countryside during the winter months. One of my favourite and most important conservation plants here at High Farm is ivy. Holding a little camera in my right hand and the BBC mic in my left. There we are, and the very first tree we come to along the edge of this part of the woodland here at High Farm is a venerable old Scots pine, about 75 feet tall, and covered almost to the crown with a generous crop of ivy. It's why I said it's important is I don't think any other plant provides such a variety of habitat and benefit to our resident wildlife. And we're just looking down the front of the woodland here, and virtually every tree on the southern side has a generous coating of ivy. Here there's a larch tree in front, and this one is, wow, it's a Douglas, and she's up there, a good 110 feet, and ivy up to about the 80-foot level. Foresters don't like it because obviously when you have good timber trees like this, if you're going to fell it, it will take a long time to strip the ivy off to get to the trunk underneath. Well, apart from that, and perhaps the wind factor, most coniferous trees can withstand quite a bit of wind, but deciduous trees during the winter months shed their leaves, and if there's a heavy crop of ivy right up into the crown of the tree, then that can cause some damage to the tree. But the benefits, in my view, far outweigh any disadvantage. First of all, ivy is not a parasite. It grows completely separately, unlike mistletoe, which we'll look at later. That's a semi-parasite, and ivy is not at all, and it's quite a shallow-rooted plant, whereas out on the farm we have well over 1,000 oak trees, and many of those have had ivy on almost from the word go. So some of those trees are 300 or even 400 years old. So this is an old snapped off tree here. It's felled in the late 1950s in a huge gale we had here, and so it's the stump, which is still in the centre of this huge clump of ivy, is producing lots of berries at this time of the year, and this is one of the advantages. So food is always in short supply out in the Norfolk countryside. In what we're now coming into, as we're past the middle of December already, it's called the Hungry Gap, and this is the real McCoy. This is real food. It actually top trumps the feed that you'll put out in your gardens. It's got lots of moisture in it, lots of starch and protein, and of course the little berries have their seeds in, which when the birds go to roost at night, the seeds drop down close to the tree trunk, obviously, and you'll get new ivy growing. So there we are. A similar trick to holly, in that holly will only produce the berries on female trees, so you need to have a male holly tree nearby, whereas ivy comes into flower and it's kind of self-pollinating here, and you can see the results of those little heads of all that pollen and nectar that flows in late autumn. Ideal food for, I don't know what rats suddenly found. Oh dear. He's always got to butt in when I'm doing these little broadcasts. So these little berries contain the seeds. So if I pick one off with my hand and just squeeze it, there you can see some of the seeds in the berry. There's 3, 4, 5 in there. It's just dropped off onto the ground. And they continue to ripen over a long, long period of time. So these little green coloured berries are not yet ripe, and they'll be ready about the end of January probably. So there we are. So right through the year, ivy is fantastic. The genus is called Hedera, and our native ivy, which we have here in the UK, is called Hedera helix. And so the stems that climb up the tree, that hug the trunk quite closely, have little lobes on the leaves, and as you get higher up the tree and also on the flowering shoots, the leaves are sort of oval shaped without the little lobes on them. So you have two shapes of leaves. You can always tell which is the flowering part of the ivy. So late nectar flow, last sort of nectar flow in the Norfolk countryside for butterflies, bees, hornets as well will come and feast on the nectar. It's quite a strong smell, and you can also, the bees here at High Ash Farm collect the nectar from ivy, and it makes wonderful, very aromatic honey, which sets quite quickly into a kind of white honey, so it's quite dense once it granulates, is the term. And so during spring, birds can nest in it, and over the winter months as well, many of our native butterflies which hibernate as adults, things like peacocks, occasionally red admirals if they get through the winter, certainly comma butterflies, small tortoiseshell as well, they will all hibernate, as well as brimstones, the first butterflies you're likely to see flying out in the Norfolk countryside, the male butterflies, that bright sulphur yellow colour. So it's got an incredible amount of wildlife value, and that's why I don't go around cutting the ivy on any of the tree trunks at all. It's always welcome here. I don't find really any extra trees being felled in windy weather because they've got ivy on them. Look at this one just coming up here. It's an amazing crop, and the berries are all the way up there. There's a good 50-60 kilos worth of berries just on that little section that I'm displaying in front of the camera. So you'll be able to see these trees with the ivy on them on High Ash Farm Facebook. So stunning plant, top marks out of the Norfolk countryside for one of our natural conservation plants. I just wouldn't be without it.